everybody to Don't Wing It, the do's and don'ts of touch and temp for safe poultry handling. We are so excited. We have almost 300 people on the webinar today. So let's get going. We have a lot of information to go through. Just a little information about us if you're not aware of the Partnership for Food Safety Education. We develop and promote effective education programs to reduce the risk of foodborne illness for consumers. We're a nonprofit and we rely on grants and donations. Our learning objectives today, attendees will be able to access the research-based Don't Wing It campaign to promote disease prevention with community partners and stakeholders. You'll be able to apply knowledge of safe poultry handling and the causes of cross-contamination in food preparation. And you'll be able to provide consumers with advice on safe poultry handling to reduce the risk of foodborne illness. To introduce us, our speakers today are Dr. Sandria Godwin from the Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee. Also joining us is Shelley Feist, Executive Director for the Partnership for Food Safety Education. And I'm your moderator, Mary Saucier-Choate, also from the partnership. CEUs, so a lot of you are dietitians or sanitarians or other professionals who can get an hour of CEU available from CDR and NEHA. 4 ways right now, if you want. You can go right to the right side of your screen, click on that handouts button, and you can see there's several PDFs there. There's the CDR and the NEHA attendance forms, also a handout on a summary of the recipe modification work that's been done by Sandria and her team, and consumer poultry handling summary, a research summary. Really interesting documents to have, and this is one of the places to get them. Another way you can get your CEUs is you'll receive them, the same links after the webinar in the follow-up email. If you're on our e-card list and you're a BAC fighter, we'll send it there. And if you miss all that stuff, you can always go to fightback.org under our events tab. You click on recorded webinars, and there's the webinar recording, the PowerPoint, and the CEU documents. Okay, some more housekeeping here. To ask a question, please use the question box on the right side of the screen. And after the webinar, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. It really helps us to improve our webinars. And now I'm going to have a quick poll question for you. Do you currently educate consumers on in-home safe handling of poultry? I'm going to launch that, and I'll ask you to take a second or two and respond. Do you currently educate consumers on in-home safe handling of poultry? Okay. Well, you responded. Let's see what you said. 64% of you said yes. You do currently educate on in-home safe handling of poultry. That's great. You're going to love these materials. 34% said no. If you have the opportunity to educate consumers, wait till you see what you're about to see. Really wonderful teaching materials. And 2% are not sure. Okay. So let's move along. Another poll question. We only have 3 polls, so please don't get annoyed with me. Do you provide consumer guidance about how to shop for poultry safety? Let's see how many of you are going to that step. Do you actually provide consumer guidance on how to shop for poultry safely? Ah, this is wonderful. We've got the right folks here. So let me close the poll and let you see the results. It looks like 35% of you do provide guidance on how to shop for poultry safely. 61% of you do not, and so you're in exactly the right place. And the information you're going to get is really going to help you to help consumers shop for poultry safely. And then 4% not sure. Okay. So I want to make sure that we're on to the next one. Okay, let me hide it, sorry. My computer's a little slow. Sorry about this. Okay, So now we're going to go on to the presentation. Our first presenter is Shelley Feist, Executive Director at the Partnership. And there's her Twitter handle if you want to tell her anything, at Shelley R. Feist. Okay, Shelley, take it away.
Thank you, Mary. So what is Don't Wing It? Well, those of you who follow the partnership know we do consumer food safety education. But Don't Wing It is a campaign to support consumers to safely handle raw poultry. And based on the research, which you're going to hear a lot more about today from Dr. Godwin, the frame of Don't Wing It is don't touch and check temp. And we'll get into more of that later.
Okay, and so final poll question. Of the pathogens you're going to see in the poll, choose the 2 you believe have been found in greater than 20% of raw chicken parts. So of these pathogens, pick the 2 that you believe have been found in greater than 20% of raw chicken parts. And the link for where we got this information is right there. And you'll see that in the PowerPoint that you can download later. Okay. Okay. So you guys are doing great. All right, I'm going to close that poll and share the results with you. And you can see that the highest scorers were, there we go, Salmonella and Campylobacter, and those are the 2 that have been found in greater than 20% of raw chicken parts. So very good, you guys know your stuff. Okay, and on that note, we'll close the poll and then we'll get back to our presentation. Okay, back to you, Shelley.
Okay, so those of you who just I think confirmed that there's a perception of poultry being associated with Salmonella and Campylobacter. What's so important about safe handling of poultry? Well, we do know that poultry is linked to outbreaks. Specifically, the category is responsible for the 2nd largest number of foodborne illnesses from outbreaks. That's, of course, not sporadic illness, but just outbreak data. Salmonella and Campylobacter are 2 common germs that can cause foodborne illness. And food poisoning, well, it can start as gastroenteritis, a bad stomach, vomiting, diarrhea, but it can also have serious long-term health effects. And that is why it's so important to handle poultry safely at home and at the store. Salmonella, again, very common. Many hospitalizations, 19,000 a year estimated, and nearly 400 deaths. And Campylobacter, again, a common cause of diarrheal illness in the United States. Symptoms within 2 to 5 days after exposure. And, pretty powerful little pathogen. Doesn't take a lot of it to cause an illness, particularly in a child who has an underdeveloped immune system or in someone who has a compromised immune system, like an older adult. We're going to cover a couple of trend points that come out of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, USDA, Food Safety Survey from their 2016 survey. So these tread points are important as they relate to handling of chicken and other poultry. Food thermometer ownership rates have remained pretty constant, but usage has slightly increased in these past 10 years between 2006 and 2016. Now, we also know, though, that the survey says that most consumers report that they rinse chicken parts or whole chickens before cooking them, even though the advice is not to rinse chicken before cooking. So a little more on this follows here. The percentage who never use a food thermometer for parts, chicken parts, has decreased, but it remains high. As you can see, it's still at 40%. So, what we're going to show you today and the whole Don't Wing It outreach effort hopefully will begin working on this, addressing this, and the importance of using thermometer for chicken parts. And then most Americans report rinsing chicken parts or whole chickens and turkeys. As you can see, it's quite high. 67% saying they always rinse raw chicken parts. So again, a point that needs addressing and which is addressed in the material we're releasing today. Some conclusions from the Food Safety Survey are that the Food Safety Survey data supports previous conclusions and implications about consumer food handling, and that consumers have relatively high levels of confidence in their food handling behaviors and the safety of the food supply, but they're not particularly concerned about getting foodborne illness. And there's still mistaken beliefs and perhaps practices that are not consistent around food thermometers and then around rinsing chicken, as we've just discussed.
Okay, thank you so much, Shelley. Now we're going to move on to Sandria, Dr. Sandria Godwin's presentation. She's the project director for Don't Wing It. Go ahead, Sandria.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone, or morning, wherever you're located. I'm very excited to be here. When this project started about 5 years ago, our intentions and our main goal were to try and reduce the number of consumers, of course, that get sick from eating poultry that was not prepared properly or had cross-contaminated other items. Our original approach, and we're doing this with Kansas State University and RTI International, and our original approach was to develop our own educational programming and try and get it out to the public. And to our wonderful advantage along the way, we started talking to Shelley at Partnership Food Safety Education, and we discussed doing a campaign that actually is on their website that has come to fruition today, and I'm so excited. I just can't stand it. But we did a lot of research along the way. We wanted it to be science-based methods, and so we want everybody to be assured that what we are telling you to do actually does work. So we've done everything from focus groups to interviews to observations, structured, unstructured, lab experiments, and large surveys, small surveys. So we have about 20 different projects that we have done that have led up to today's findings. So I'm just going to review a few of those that had the major influence on what we decided to include in the campaign. In our focus groups, we had different groups of younger people and older people, and we asked them if they had heard that they should use the plastic bag found in the meat section. And many of them said they'd heard that, but they didn't use it. Some even said they had never seen the bags, and they were going to go start looking for them because if they're available, they wanted to use them. Some even suggested displaying a sign with the bag so people would be more likely to notice and use them. We did try a study doing that, and it was kind of interesting because we got a worse result after the sign than before. So that didn't lead anywhere. We didn't like that. Next slide, please. After the focus groups, we did do a nationwide demographically representative survey, and we did have 40% of the consumers saying that they don't put their poultry in the separate plastic bag at the grocery store. And this was specifically asking them about the one in the meat section. They're much better at putting it in the bag separate at the checkout counter, but by then the cross-contamination has already occurred. So we wondered, how do people handle their raw poultry in the grocery store, and where does cross-contamination occur? Next slide. So we did an observation grocery store study, both in the store, and then we followed the people home, which was a lot of fun, in 3 different cities. And we observed what they touched in the store, if they used the plastic bags or not, if they used the sanitizer, if there was some there, what else they touched after they touched the poultry. And then we followed them home to see what they did with the poultry once they got home, where they put it, what it touched in the process. And then Furchi Chen, who's pictured in the picture, actually developed a new process where he could assess the spread of the poultry juice on all the packages and surfaces that people had touched or that the poultry had touched. And we've done lots of projects related to that, so in the micro lab, and they're very interesting, and you'll find some of those published soon, we hope. So what we found was that the bags are readily available. That was a good finding. Now some don't have them, and those tend to be the smaller specialty stores. But even though they were there, only about a fourth of the consumers used the bag that was in the meat section. So we want to emphasize that in our campaign. We did find that if they didn't use the bag, the poultry juice is spread all over the place and spread to at least, we assessed the next 3 things they touched. The cart handle, of course, was most likely to be the next thing they touched, but children, other groceries, we've got boxes and cans and bottles and things like that, and then things that are actually in the cart itself. So what we found was that, yes, it does spread, and it spreads, and side note, if you look at the micro studies, it actually lives for a long time once it gets on those handles and boxes and containers and in the refrigerator. But we found if the people that had put the poultry in the bag at the meat section, there was no cross-contamination afterwards. So big finding. We love that. However, once they got home, they took the poultry out of the bag and they laid it on the countertop or put it in the refrigerator and moved it several places, laid it by the stove, in the sink, and all over. So they led to cross-contamination once they got home. So you'll see that relates to our messages later. Next slide, please. In our survey, we also found that 62% of consumers reported using a food thermometer with whole poultry, but astoundingly, very few used it. So they might have had one, according to the FSIS survey, but they don't use it. They didn't think about using it with pieces of poultry. Only 26% used it with whole, like breast, but only 12% used it with ground poultry patties. So we wondered what they were doing or what they were being told to do to determine when the poultry was done. And then we set up a study to see if they would use a thermometer if they were told to use it and told to use it correctly. So next slide, please. So we looked at a lot of poultry recipes, old ones, new ones, different sources, and we found that only a fourth of them gave a specified temperature for doneness. So they did other things such as a cooking time, which was very common, but as you know, that's usually based on a length of time that's not related to necessarily the size of the item you cook. A lot of them are still recommending cutting into it, making sure the juices run clear. Is it no longer pink? And then we had this really fascinating one I want to do a new study on is what does cook through mean to a consumer. So the recipes are not really helping much when it came to giving them instructions. We did do 2 observation studies. We brought consumers into the lab, and in the first one they were just asked to prepare chicken breast and a ground turkey patty as they did at home. We showed them everything that was available for their usage, and of course thermometers were available if they wanted to use them. And then we recorded lots of things while observing them about other food safety factors, but mostly we were looking for whether they used a thermometer or not. And then if they used one, what was the internal temperature? If they didn't use one, what was the internal temperature? So then afterwards we conducted interviews to see what was going through their mind, because a lot of times they'd make comments during the cooking, but we kind of wondered what they were thinking about when they made that comment. So we only found that a fourth used a thermometer, even though it was available, they're available for them to use. And of those who used the thermometer, only half of those were even cooked to the right temperature. So if they used one at all, they didn't know it. And then definitely the ones that didn't use the thermometer weren't cooking to the right temperature. So that's a problem. In a follow-up study, we put instructions in the recipes, and we divided participants into 2 groups, those that got a recipe with instructions for food safety steps in them, and those that didn't have the steps in it. And afterwards, again, we conducted interviews, mostly to find out if they found this repetitive system of restating food safety factors over and over and over again to be kind of annoying. And so here's an example of some of the instructions, and when you go look at the recipes in our campaign, you'll see how those are embedded into the recipes themselves. So we repeated over and over, wash your hands with soap and warm water after they did anything that might have led to cross-contamination between the hands and the meat. And then we told them to use the thermometer, how to insert the thermometer, and then what temperature to cook it to. And then there you go again, wash those hands anytime they had touched the turkey. So what we found was, between the 2 groups of those with and without the food safety instructions, there was a dramatic increase in the number of people who actually washed their hands at the different steps, and definitely a huge increase in the number of people that used a thermometer to test for doneness and used it correctly, and that was the most important part for us. We don't know if that would last over time, but we assume it would. So after we've done all these studies, we've kind of decided, what are the messages that we're going to emphasize in our campaign? We've seen the same basic things over and over with consumers that they're not doing correctly. So they still don't wash their hands often enough, especially before cooking. They are not using the plastic bags in the meat section, and they are not cleaning their grocery cart handles. They're not leaving the bag in there, not leaving the poultry in the bag, and so they're taking it out and cross-contaminating at home. They definitely are not checking the temperature of cuts of poultry. Many are checking large, like turkeys, of course, are always pretty popular. If they are doing the temperature, they're not cooking it to the right temperature, and they're not thawing poultry many times correctly and in the right location in the refrigerator. So we've had a lot of fun, like snooping in refrigerators all over the United States. I want to give credit to our collaborators, and these are the individuals themselves. I already mentioned that Kansas State and RTI are our collaborators, and a lot of people worked on this. The graduate students, there's probably about 30 of them that have worked on it now. And we're still in process of doing studies. We're working on grilling chicken right now, and so watching that with another student. And we're just really excited that it's come to the point today that Shelley's now going to show you our campaign. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Godwin. And now we're going to go back to Shelley Feist, Executive Director of the Partnership.
Thank you. So we're, as Sandra said, this campaign has been in development for quite a time, and it's been a great deal of fun to work on, and also important because it does suggest some new messaging to support the consumer, particularly in at-store behavior. So let's take a look at Don't Wing It. Don't Wing It is built on a creative frame of the do's and don'ts of touch and temp for safe poultry handling. So that's what you'll see throughout the material. The primary messages are around don't touch in store, disinfecting your shopping cart handle using the disinfectant wipes provided, placing the poultry in the plastic bags that are provided at the meat counter to help avoid cross-contamination, and using hand sanitizer where available after touching raw and packaged poultry in store. And the why, of course, Sandra has gotten into some of this, but it's always good to refresh our memories. 85% of people touching the shopping cart handle directly after handling raw poultry. So this is a good why point for disinfecting your shopping cart handle when you get to the store. Again, a cross-contamination matter. Placing the poultry in these plastic bags that are provided at the meat counter, it reduces the risk of pathogens coming into contact both with your other grocery items, but also, of course, with your hands. And knowing that it's very hard to wash your hands with soap and water, which is the preferred method when you're in a store, but often there's hand sanitizer provided, or bring your own hand sanitizer, and again, to reduce the risk of cross-contamination through touch. There's also don't touch points for at home, such as keeping the poultry in the plastic bag that it came in or that you used at the store, and putting it on a low shelf to prevent leakage from contaminating other foods. Nearly 60% of grocery store customers stored the poultry without placing it in a plastic bag. So as Sandria said in their research, this did lead to cross-contamination, both in the cart and at home. Wash hands before and after handling, always using warm water and soap. 90% of consumers cross-contaminate foods during meal preparation. So hand washing is critical. Check temp. So at home, there's 2 points for checking temp. First, in the refrigerator, you want your refrigerator to be at 40 degrees or below when thawing, and we also have a campaign called Go 40 or Below. Thawing frozen poultry in the refrigerator to avoid it coming into this danger zone that's between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 Fahrenheit. And then the critical checkpoint, check temp at home, using a food thermometer, and ensuring that the product has reached the safe internal temperature of 165 degrees. Sandra mentioned their observational research with the turkey patty preparation, and 50% of consumers were likely to eat a turkey patty that was cooked at a lower than safe temperature when they viewed it under new LED lighting, which is becoming, of course, much more common. So there are, doing it by sight is not a safety, a good home food safety strategy. We're also going to talk in Don't Wing It about thinking before you rinse, about the rinsing raw poultry, spreads, juices around your sink, onto your countertops, possibly onto ready-to-eat foods. The bacteria in raw meat and poultry can only be killed when cooked to a safe minimum internal temperature, which for poultry is 165, as measured with a thermometer. So we'll be talking about rinse as we go forward in our social media. I wanted to show you very specifically where you're going to find these materials on fightback.org, which is the leading website of the partnership, and it is a very much a go-to destination for educators to download all the campaigns that we've developed. Don't Wing It, as you see, can be found under the Food Safety Education tab in the pull-down menu, and there it is, the first item. So it'll take you to a consumer landing page. Now, we work hard to make sure that you all are informed and know where materials are, but of course we have many consumer visitors. So they'll come to this and get the recipes and the brochures. And as you see down in the bottom of that page, we have special sections for BAC Fighters and for retailers. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped this, but the recipe page, as you see, we made it simple to navigate for the consumer. We mentioned at the top that there's research that shows that building these instructions into recipes improves consumer food safety behaviors. And we have, I think, 7 recipes, all of which build in food safety instructions and include the Don't Wing It logo. And as you see, photographs. We did feel strongly to keep these to one page, so some of this type may be small for some people, but it allows a person to print it off at home. Now to the BAC Fighter and retailer sections. We're going to look at BAC Fighter section because that's the folks who are on the phone. On the BAC Fighter page, you're going to find, among other items, a special activation ideas document, a science behind the messages 2-page document where many of the primary research points from the observational research that Sandria talked about are built in to give you a quick glance at why do each of these things we're recommending matter. An email template for you to use extensively, personalize it, make it your own organizations, and send it out to your fields. A PowerPoint you can use with a consumer audience or a audience that is just learning about some of these food safety points. A blog post article, an infographic, which we hope you'll get on Facebook, get on Twitter, and share it. And then we provide these research one-pagers. And by the way, a reminder that if you look here today, we're providing these 2 research one-pagers here also as handouts. But they're fantastic because they summarize the key points of the research, both on the recipe modification and generally on consumers' behavior when shopping for and storing poultry. Science behind the messages, again, I did already talk about this a bit, but it really gives you some basic facts. It's a good quick reference for you about the research points and the why behind the messages. We have some special tools that we're hoping retailers will use because many retailers talk about food safety with their customers, and we're really wanting to encourage retailers because of the issues that we talk about in the campaign, about the plastic bags, about the disinfectant wipes and a hand sanitizer to activate the retailers. So there's an activation ideas document for the retailers. There's a circular ad that you see here, a picture of. There's poultry bag artwork. We would love you to run a promotion perhaps with printed plastic bags and a shelf tag you can use to encourage your customers to use the bag at the store for products. So Sandria talked about all the research, the consumer research behind the campaign. There was also testing of campaign creative, which was my bailiwick. There was a test of the Don't Wing It logos. Maybe some of you were part of that. We tested it September 2016 and then refined it and made some changes. There was also a focus group test of the parent brochure. Now, both the brochures for the two constituent groups, for parents of young children and for seniors, that content was focus group tested in February. So we made further refinements to these messages and further refinements to the creative based on that focus group. Well, you all do food safety education regularly, at least 60-some% of you do. But here's some suggested next steps. The brochure is intended to be printed, distributed. It could be attached as an email attachment to your constituents. Please use and share the brochure. Again, they're refined for parents, for seniors. Recipes, I could think of many ways these could be used and promoted. You know, it's fun to be able to talk about food preparation in a way that gets more, you know, juicy and the fun parts of it with delicious recipes. So these are great for any group you might work with, you know, in a setting to teach them about food and nutrition. And then the email template is really to make it easy for you all to send out information about the Don't Wing It messages, and you'll find that in the BAC Fighter page and also the retailer page. We'd also like you to get social. And again, I think it's a really important thing to mention that we're not saying there's a limited time for you to do this. We would love you to do it over the next few months with us, but Don't Wing It is going to be on fightback.org and it's going to stay there. So, you know, maybe you're planning promotions for next year. Planning to get social with us. We'll be on social media quite a lot with the campaign. The infographic, a lot of factoids about who's most vulnerable for foodborne illness. We'll be using Don't Wing It hashtag on Twitter, so feel free to use that. And the more we use that, the more it's going to take the consumers you serve to the partnerships website and get them right to more detail on how they can reduce the risk of foodborne illness by not winging it. The blog article again, if you have a blog, consider just using this blog article and linking to Don't Wing It consumer page. Pretty soon we're going to be getting to questions, so I hope you'll please, if you have a question, please start entering them now so that when I'm done here in a moment, you guys will get right to your questions. We want you to stay connected. You know, we do these webinar events and they're getting really, really popular. We put out new stuff. We call your attention to resources that might be important in the context of a current outbreak or recall. So our weekly emails is really the only way. We don't regularly post alerts on our website. So our emails are a really important way to get high quality resources and to learn about more of these webinars. We really want to hear if you use Don't Wing It and how you use it. Mary Choate loves to get your email. She's the BAC Fighter friend, and these stories of how you use it and what you do are super important. We know many of you are reaching thousands of consumers a year, if not more. So it's very important to us to hear from you everything about how you use the resources, because our goal is to make sure you have what you need to educate consumers.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelley. What a wonderful program. I'm so excited to be offering this to BAC Fighters. And as everything on the partnership website, it's all free, but it's such high quality stuff. It's not just, it's worth money if we give it away for free to BAC Fighters. So now we're going to go to questions. And as I'm looking at your questions, I want to just make a sell for following us on Facebook. Most BAC Fighters are using Facebook, well, more than any other social media. So I'm begging you all to just like us, be our friend, follow us, and you're going to get resources every day about what we offer. And it'll be a lot of don't wing it right now, but all sorts of things. I try to think about what kind of things you're asking for and put those out on Facebook and Twitter. So please go ahead and like us and follow us. All right, so now to your questions, so many. Oh, this is kind of a funny question. Where did people get the idea to wash their chicken? Sandria, would you want to answer that question?
Originally, I think it was way back in the dark ages when chickens came right out of your yard. And the concept of plucking a chicken without washing it before you cook it just was kind of a thought that nobody wanted to do. I know I had a lady that told me that she'll eat anything but chicken because they used to pluck them in the backyard. So I think it goes way back to that, when people just thought that they had to wash off the dirt that came out of the yard when the chicken was killed.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? Because you're doing all the processing right there. Now here's another question. Did you notice when you were observing checkout clerks, you said that one of the things that was happening is that checkout clerks were bagging the poultry. But did they also are they also sanitizing their hands so they're not then touching something and
No, they're not. And, you know, we're really looking at the consumers, but you are correct that they are not cleaning their own hands. They're picking up everybody's chicken and putting it in a separate bag, which that part we like. At least they were doing that. But no, they're not cleaning, and they're not cleaning the belt that the chicken goes on. And so, you know, you lay the chicken. So if it's in the bag at the meat section, you're actually helping at the checkout too, because you're not laying chicken that's going to spread juices all over the counter itself when you check out.
Right, that's a great point. Thank you for asking that, Nancy. Okay, now Liliana is asking, is the information in Spanish as well? Do you have any plans for that, for Spanish? Well, that may be a future project. Do you know, Shelley? Or Sandria?
It is not in our project. I don't know if the partnership, because I don't think you have anything in Spanish, do we? Or maybe we have some now.
Thank you for asking that, though, because that's good to keep on our radar.
I think they do have one campaign that has some Spanish, but this one is not in the campaign now.
Okay. So, okay.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. One of the important things about developing a campaign, when you use things like irony, etc., and doing the creative, is that it really should be built from the ground up for English and for Spanish. So it becomes sort of two separate projects. So,
because they don't wing it, they wouldn't mean anything to someone who's not English speaking.
Well, it might, but you have to test it separately, etc. So, but that being the case, we have a goal to be adding more Spanish language resources, and that is definitely something we will be doing.
Okay, we have a question from Roxanne. What about turkey parts? Do they need bagging too?
Yes, definitely. We actually use ground turkey, but turkey parts, the problem we have right now is whole turkeys won't fit into the bags. So we have discussed that with some of the commercial partners, and hopefully they'll be getting bigger bags for those. But and they're usually frozen, which don't tend to leak as much as the fresh anyway. But the fresh turkeys, we need big bags.
Okay. Let's see. Let's look at, there's so many good questions. Okay, here's a question from Barb. Is there any time at all, is there any circumstance when we should rinse poultry? She says when she gets her Thanksgiving turkey from a local turkey farm, it seems like it really needs to be rinsed, especially the inside. What do you say?
If someone wants to rinse their chicken or poultry or turkey, whichever they want, because we even talked about pigeons and quails at some point, they need to be really careful of washing everything down and sanitizing after they do it, because the reason we're not supposed to wash it is that the juice splatters in different places. You don't even notice where it's splattering many times, but so they need to be really cautious about washing with warm soap and warm water and soap, and then sanitizing if they're going to do that. But if someone is not getting a commercial bird, is what I would say, is there might be instances where there is dirt on the outside. Dirt is not going to hurt anybody normally. It's still going to have the bacteria killed, so it just depends on what you're worried about getting in your system. Yeah. It's just kind of an unpleasant sometimes.
I would say it's not a safety step. So yeah, as long as you view it as this has nothing to do with food safety, except that you're actually perhaps introducing more risk, but just know that rinsing does not rinse away pathogens. Those have to be killed through the cooking process.
Correct.
Good point. Now, this is from Jessica. She's asking, do you have any resources for educating staff within a food service environment? Certainly some of these could be used in a food service environment.
Well, this is Shelley. Our work of the partnership isn't for consumers. What we do find is that sometimes our material gets used for basic training, but it's not intended to be for food service. Just for consumer.
Correct. They have a different set of standards. However, yes, there are a lot of resources out there for food service. The Food Service Management Institute out of Mississippi has a lot of resources.
That's great. That's a great tip. The food, what did you call it? The Food Safety?
It's the National Food Service Management Institute. It's nfsmi.org, I believe. They have a lot of resources for food service people.
Great. Now, Benjamin is asking, do you have any strategies for engaging with local stores to share this great info and make sure they're using the bags and the sanitizer?
Okay, Shelley, go for it.
Well, we're fortunate in that a lot of our BAC Fighters do work in food retail, and there's some on this call now probably. We cannot compel them to, and we don't have budget to, do that as a strategy per se, but we have many examples of Fight Back materials and campaigns and logos and graphics being integrated by food retailers in the United States. I would characterize it that many of these food retailers make communicating about food safety a fundamental part of their customer communications. So we will be doing social media outreach and other outreach and articles to encourage them to use it.
We worked actually with a small chain here, and they were really excited and open to us coming in and encouraging people to use the bags. We were concerned at first because if people start using more bags, obviously their food costs go up. I mean, their costs for operation go up. But it's as Shelley said, they're more interested in the welfare of their consumers, knowing that if a consumer gets sick and they blame it on the store, that they're not going to come back there. So we found really good positive comments from the people that we've talked to.
It's great PR to educate the consumer on why you're doing that, I think. That's Mary. Okay, so here's another. Such great questions, and this is a good one to reiterate what we already talked about. The question from Barb is, can an experienced, educated chef tell when poultry is done without taking the temp? And I'm going to add under LED lights.
We haven't tested that, to be honest. Our contention is that no, because you can't tell if there's bacteria in there, and we know there is. So they really can't tell if they've killed all the bacteria just by looking, and so they'd have to use a thermometer. Now they say they can, but We have another side study on this, and watching chefs, and there's a lot of information on that out that they really don't practice food safety most of the time, so it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, I would say that one way for consumers to look at this also, and chefs should, is why would you want to overcook your product? Using a food thermometer means it's safe and it's not overcooked. I mean, I think we know from past research that consumers might overcook something like chicken,
Right.
and then it doesn't taste as good or whatever. So there's the reason to use a thermometer is both safety and quality.
Especially on chicken breasts, we found that if you don't use the thermometer, they probably overcook them, whereas whole chicken and chicken parts, they do tend to undercook.
Right.
So it gets dry and tougher, and you're correct. Aesthetically, it's much better with a thermometer normally.
Okay, here's a great question, and I think this is a reason why similar materials might not be appropriate for food service. The question from Katie, and another person mentions a similar question, has the temperature danger zone recently changed? This webinar presents the danger zone as 40 to 140. And in food service, I think in ServSafe, it's like 41 to 135. And I think that's the difference between what consumer guidelines are compared to food service. We have much more control over many more of the factors.
Well,
preparation.
And they're correct. In the FDA food code right now has changed to 40 to 135. But that food code has to be adopted by each individual state. So there are still some states using the 140. And definitely in food service, where it's mandated that you use a thermometer, people are supposed to be using them or they can get in a lot of trouble. You're assuming that people are using it, and so they know 135 is okay for that. But, right now, everyone hasn't adopted the new change, and the consumer is still 40 to 140.
Thank you. Oh, here's a great question. This is from Susan. Many consumers now use reusable shopping bags. Will any part of the campaign address that? Placing poultry in plastic bags helps consumers transport the poultry in reusable bags safely. Great observation.
It's not addressed in the campaign, but it's absolutely makes sense that if you put it in the bag at the meat counter and then put it in the reusable bag, you're not going to cross-contaminate that reusable bag. So definitely another good reason to put it in the bag at the meat counter.
Okay, here's another question from Barb. Are there instructions for the proper use of a thermometer? Are any types of thermometer better than others?
Is your thermometer better than others? The answer is no. We have tested and tested and tested thermometers, as have many other people. They vary drastically. So there is I want to add to that, there's a safety factor built into that 165 temperature. Salmonella, which is and Campylobacter actually killed at the temperature considerably below that. So they built a safety factor in to allow for thermometer fluctuations. But no, there's not a brand that's any better than any other, unfortunately. They all are a couple degrees off sometimes.
Okay. Oh, these are such good questions. So here's something just to address again, because I'm sure all of us, many of us have grown up with old wives' tales or old ways of doing things that are no longer, we know they're not safe anymore. So this person said, Ann says, when she was taught to cook, she was told to rinse the chicken to get the blood off. But we know that that's not a safety step, right? Because anything in the blood is going to get killed when you cook it.
Right, right. And there's actually some healthy things in blood. If you eat cooked blood, it's really quite healthy.
Okay. Oh, here's a great question from Phyllis. Are the pop-up thermometers correct in turkeys?
No.
So don't use those. Don't
they are
don't
not.
rely on those.
No, they're really, because they're based upon being able to come loose from the packaging that they're in and easily it's a steam type effect. And no, that's going to vary a whole lot on what you're doing.
Okay. Here's a good question from Jessica. What's the best
Mary, I
sanitizer?
think that needs to be our last question.
Okay. What's the best sanitizer to use within the home?
I don't. If
I would say soap and water.
You're talking about on surfaces, it's making your own with bleach. We make it here all the time. We put 1 teaspoon of bleach into a quart of water, and you have to remake it every time you use it, but it's sure the cheapest thing, and it really works. We've tested that too, and it takes, the safe time is 20 seconds, but sometimes, within 5 seconds the bacteria is dead. So, we found that works very well. You don't have to buy any of those expensive bleaching agents.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions because they were quite excellent. You can always look at fightback.org for more of the answers, and also, of course, foodsafety.gov. But if you have a question you really have a hard time getting the answer to, I'm happy to help find the answer to it. So on that note, I guess we have to wrap up. So here we go. I guess that's up to you, Shelley.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. We had a fantastic response to this webinar. So we really appreciate that you've attended. And again, a reminder to take the survey. As soon as we close the webinar, you'll get a survey. That helps us a great deal to know what we can do to improve. Also, your CEU certificate, you can get it right here under handouts, or it will be there'll be a link to it in your follow-up email. But please, please get that. We're not able to answer all your questions next week about where the CEU certificate is. We put up the recorded webinars, and it will be listed there too on fightback.org. So all of our programming is made possible by our support from our sponsoring partners. Our leading sponsoring partners are listed here. We thank them for their support. We also thank our BAC Fighter community connectors. These are donors who specifically want to make sure that BAC Fighters have this kind of programming, have free access to material. So we salute the BAC Fighter community connectors, thank them for the support making webinars like this possible. We have a whole appendix about the research behind the campaign. You'll also find this in the Science Behind the Messages document at fightback.org and the Don't Wing It campaign. So please fill out the evaluation webinar. Thank you for coming. We're going to ask you about, are you going to use the campaign? And please tell us what you plan to do. I'll do the quick acknowledgement. This was Sandria's grant, but it was supported through a grant from the National Institutes, Food and Agriculture. So we thank them for making Don't Wing It possible. Thank you, and remember at fightback.org, all of the Don't Wing It resources are there today, are ready for you to use, and we look forward to continuing to be in touch with you about promoting safe poultry handling at store and at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your being BAC Fighters and attending the webinar, and please remember to respond to the survey. Thank you.